Carson. And good afternoon for those of us on the East Coast, but welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Scott Wilson. I'm with the Close-Up Foundation, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Teaching for Democracy Alliance to tell a little bit about who we are, our work, and how we can hopefully support civic education, particularly around elections and voting around the country. So we, the Teaching for Democracy Alliance, are a national alliance working to strengthen student learning about elections and informed voting. We start with the premise that students who recall having received better civic education are more likely to vote and to be civically engaged. Unfortunately, it is white students and students from higher socioeconomic backgrounds who experience this kind of high quality civic education. That's compounded by the fact that only 38% of social studies teachers think they would get strong support from their district to teach about an election, and only 28% think parents would strongly support them. And actually, this data is about 2 years old, and those numbers, if I had to guess, would be worse now than they were then. The teachers would feel even less likely that they would get support from their district and administration, and even more teachers would be worried that parents would be opposed to the work that they're doing. So the Teaching for Democracy Alliance was created by a number of already existing civic education organizations, including namely the National Association for Media Literacy Education, who's hosting this whole event, to address these realities. Sorry, scrolling a little bit too fast. So what is the Teaching for Democracy Alliance? It is an alliance that supports the important role that K-12 schools can play to create cultures that support and promote political election engagement. Schools are sites where young people are exposed to a range of influences on their likelihood of engagement, and we want to enable schools to have a positive impact that supports youth voices. Young people's pathways to participation are diverse, and schools can reach a broad population of youth in ways that can close decades-long gaps in voter participation, which exist among youth even at the youngest ages. The Alliance formally began in 2015 as an effort to engage a large number of civic education organizations and voter engagement groups in conversation together, so that we can share our insights and our experiences with each other, and also combine our forces to share resources that can be most helpful to schools and to teachers. So currently, the Alliance is composed of 19 national nonpartisan civic education organizations who do work in all 50 states and directly engage more than 8 million young people and over 200,000 educators. And you can see the names and logos of the various organizations that are involved in the Teaching for Democracy Alliance here. And no doubt you will have encountered some of the resources and the programming of at least one of these organizations at some point in your work, especially if you work in civic education, social studies education, and media literacy spaces. So why is the Teaching for Democracy Alliance important? Well, one thing that we really focus on is this idea that modern democracy is polarized. We're hyper-partisan in the United States, and quite polarized as a public. And in that climate, it is very important to support teaching about elections and voting in ways that are suited to multiple communities. Because if you take only a sort of a one-size-fits-all approach, you may find that approach doesn't in fact fit all or even most. We want to encourage more learning about elections and voting specifically, recognizing that such learning is not currently equally distributed. Schools have a long-time civic mission, and as a society, we cannot leave learning about elections and voting to partisan actors. So too often, teaching directly about the processes of elections, what it takes to become registered as a voter, what a ballot looks like, what the act of voting in local, municipal, state level, and national elections, all of that just doesn't happen in schools. And educators can be anxious teaching about elections and voting, especially right now, and we are here to help. Often this requires more than just lesson plans or good ideas about teaching. It also requires public support and support from school leaders and administrators. To that end, we've developed the Preparing Future Voters commitment, which is a commitment that seeks to equip teachers and schools with the tools to feel empowered to teach about elections and voting by asking school and district leaders to recognize the role of voting and elections in creating a more equitable society, and to commit to strengthening civic instruction in their schools. Specifically, the Preparing Future Voters commitment is something that schools, school leaders, teachers, district leaders can sign. So they can sign a commitment through the Teaching for Democracy Alliance website, and we'll leave a link to this towards the end of the presentation. But people can sign up to show that their school and that their district is committed to teaching, to preparing future voters. And by doing so, if they choose, if they're willing, we'll list publicly which districts and schools are part of it to help build the support nationally and publicly for more and better teaching about elections and democracy. But we will also send targeted resources that are put together to meet the needs specifically addressed by the teachers and administrators who sign the Preparing Future Voters commitment. Sorry, grabbed the wrong thing and was dragging the title away. And so we want to equip teachers and administrators with the tools to feel empowered to teach about elections and voting. And we want to learn the needs of schools, of district leaders, of administrators, and of teachers so that we can better target the resources that our various organizations are creating. And we want to offer those directly to as many schools as possible to strengthen civic instruction, particularly civic instruction related to elections and voting. We also have a checklist and rubric for school and district leaders that offers administrators a step-by-step guide for amplifying teaching about elections and voting in their institutions. And so I'll take a look at this rubric in just a second, but it describes 6 key elements of teaching about elections and voting. And these are also the elements that we as an alliance provide resources to support. So it's teaching about voter registration, explicit instruction about voting and elections, media literacy, discussion and deliberation, action civics, and teacher support that is intended to broadly support the efforts of teachers across each of the other 5 domains. So here's a look at our teaching about elections and voting rubric, our self-assessment matrix. And you can see here that across each of these 6 domains, we have descriptions for what this looks like at the level of a classroom teacher, the level of a school, and at the level of a district. And this matrix is based on research about best practices in high-quality civics education in the K-12 context, and was developed by the Alliance and member organizations. To help support instruction across each of these 5 domains, and to provide teacher support and resources, we have resources that we've compiled from each of our member organizations, all put together in one website. And so if you look at our resources, you'll see that these 6 items in the drop-down menu match the 6 items in the rubric. And so we have resources for teaching about and conducting voter registration. We have lesson plans, have resources to put together voter registration drives, information about what you must know as a young voter in different states and different contexts. Then we have instruction on elections and voting to help students better understand the electoral process, to understand voting and ballot access, to understand what ballots look like, for example, and to help engage directly in the electoral process. We have media literacy resources compiled from our member organizations. Sorry, there's a lag as that opens. So we have lessons and resources compiled here from organizations, including namely to help teach about, to help prepare teachers to engage in media literacy education, and then lessons that directly target specific media literacy skills. And we have resources for classroom discussion, specifically classroom discussion around current issues and the kinds of political and public issues that might be on the ballot in any given year, or that might be central to an election. And so we have resources to help create classroom norms, resources to connect to specific issues that drive many elections, and resources to help reflect on and develop structures for classroom deliberation. And lastly, we have resources for action civics and experiential learning that are also a core part of good civic instruction. And so these are ways to connect the classroom to the community. And then finally, we have teacher training support and resources. These include webinars and other things that that we offer to help teachers think about and prepare for the work of teaching about elections, voting, and doing more and better civic education. So we invite educators to use all of our resources, and I'll put links to these in the chat in just a few moments. We also invite K-12 school and district leaders to sign the Teaching for Democracy Alliance's Preparing Future Voters commitment, which again will signal their support for strengthening civic instruction and teaching about elections and voting within their institutions. And that will also trigger us sending some targeted resources as administrators and district leaders are filling out the questionnaires, letting us know what areas of civic instruction they would most like to focus on. And interested members are encouraged to contact our Equitable Democracy Fellow, Nerea Price, who couldn't be with us today due to an illness, to learn more about the Teaching for Democracy Alliance, and to learn more about what it might take to either be a member or to just stay engaged with the work that we are doing. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here. I'll put some of those links that I mentioned into the chat, but I'd also like to pause here and see if there are questions that people have about the work of the Teaching for Democracy Alliance that I might be able to answer. And I just put the link for the Preparing Future Voters commitment into the chat. And I'll now put the link to our resources page in the chat as well. And finally, I'll put in the email address to Nerea Price, the Equitable Democracy Fellow, who you can contact with questions after this presentation if you'd like to know more about the Alliance or how to be involved with our work. All right, thank you everyone for being with us. I'm happy to stay on to answer any questions that people have one-on-one. But if there are sort of no questions for the whole group, then I think we can certainly wrap up there. Thanks so much for coming to learn more about the Teaching for Democracy Alliance, and we hope we can support any work that you're doing in civic education in the future. Thanks so much.